Well, there's a lot of things going on in the damn world that I could talk about, but I'm going to principally talk about two things today. But before I do, yeah, it's a hell of a note that Liz Cheney got beaten in a landslide in the primary in Wyoming by an absolute whack job who's a disciple of Donald Trump. You know, it's something, isn't it? And you know, Liz Cheney looks like her dad. She looks just like him. But it's a hell of a note when somebody who's she's pretty right wing, like her dad, but when they're considered not even a part of the GOP mainstream anymore, that only the whack jobs and the conspiracy theorists and the outright fascists, to say nothing of the libertarians, they're the ones that are the Republican Party now. Now you tell me with a straight face why we should even vote any of those in. Forget it. And so, anyhow, that's a picture of my late beloved dog anyway, Tony, or Duffy. But before I get on to the other stuff, there was that press conference by this woman that was kicked out of the YMCA. She's 80 years old, and she gave a speech, and that was, what day was that? That was just a couple of days ago, and it's pretty hard to listen to it because all of the GI crowd, there was probably, they estimated about 200 of them as opposed to 30 or 40 women that were supporting this woman who got kicked out of the Y because she complained about a dude being in a woman's space. And of course, this is a so-called transgender who's in the process of transitioning. And he's allowed to go in there and be a voyeur. Voyeurism is illegal. It was illegal. But of course, that's the point with the queer theory crowd and the GI crowd. They want to decriminalize all the perversions. They want to normalize it. So this woman complained about it, and she got kicked out of there. She didn't want this perv in there, who's an employee. She didn't want this perv in there watching little girls be naked and going to the bathroom and stuff. And thought that was horrible. Well, no, she was the horrible one. Because, after all, this dude's sexual kink is more important. And so then, he had a bunch of supporters on here that got wind of this press conference, and they tried to shout the women down. They didn't succeed, but it's hard to hear what she has to say, she and the other women, because they were so loud. And all they said was, you know, that bullshit, trans women are women. You could say that a million times and it doesn't make it true. And they know it's not true. They just want a perv. That's all they want to do. That's why they want in on the women's spaces. So anyway, it's a predator rights movement. So-called predator privilege movement. But that's just, and I'll put a link to it, to that press conference. But these are the outrages in a post-Roe world. And there were a couple of them yesterday, or that were talked about yesterday. And I thought I'd note it. And this is probably going to be a series of videos in the next however long, noting these absolute outrages. And for one here, there was a Florida girl who's 16 years old, didn't have any parents, so she couldn't get their permission to get an abortion. And she has a guardian, and the guardian was okay with it. But she had to go to a judge, you know, to prove that she's not a slut, right? That's the only reason you go to a judge or to a panel and just as in the pre-Roe times, to prove you're not a slut. That you have to risk your life, and all pregnancies are life-threatening. All of them are. There's none of them that don't have the potential to kill. And, but anyway, the idiot judges denied her decision. A Florida Court of Appeal this week upheld a decision stating that a 16-year-old teen could not get an abortion because she lacked the maturity to make such a decision, even after the parentless teen said she was not ready to have a child and is still in school. Well, she's going to have the baby. There are all these wonderful white upper class people, couples, who would love to take in a baby. Or you could just marry the father. You shouldn't have been having sex anyway. I really hope that somebody has gotten in contact with this teen and has arranged for her to get an abortion out of state. And this is insane. An opinion released Monday by the Florida 1st District Court of Appeal upheld an earlier decision by a state court judge. That judge was not convinced the teen had demonstrated the maturity to choose to get an abortion. But she's mature enough to have a baby. Oh, fuck that crap. The teen, identified only as Jane Doe 22B, has no parents but is in the care of Florida's Child Welfare Agency and has a guardian. She's about 10 weeks pregnant and currently resides with a relative. The minor states that she is sufficiently mature to make the decision, saying she is not ready to have a baby, she doesn't have a job, she is still in school, and the father is unable to assist her because he's probably as young as she is too. But hey, have the baby, give the baby up for adoption, because you're just a thing to fucking have kids anyway. And then in 20 years down the road, they come knocking on her door asking, oh, I was told that you were my mother, or I found out you were my mother. Why did you give me up? Oh, God. This is absolutely crazy. But one appeals court judge, Scott McCarr, offered a partial dissent, writing in the opinion that the appellate court should have sent the case back to the lower court. Given the open-ended nature of the order reflecting the trial judge's willingness to hear from the minor again, and the time pressures presented, I would remand the case to the trial court. Why the hell should you have to get permission to get an abortion? Should be able to get it. I just hope somebody has contacted her so she can get it. But that was an outrage. And then, in Louisiana, there was this story. A woman may be forced to give birth to a headless baby because of an abortion ban. There's no provision in Louisiana law that would allow this woman to have a legal abortion for this reason. So, she's going to have to carry this fetus to term again unless she can go out of state. So, and this woman went on the record. It was her first ultrasound that Nancy Davis said she learned there was no way the baby, about whom she'd once been so excited, would ever grow up. It was an abnormal ultrasound, and they noticed the top of the baby's head was missing, and the skull was missing. The top of the skull was missing. It's hard knowing that I'm carrying it to bury it. You know what I'm saying? Davis said she was 10 weeks into her pregnancy at the time of her ultrasound, but is unable to get an abortion in her home state of Louisiana, thanks to the state's near-total ban on the procedure. Her only options, she said, are to either carry the pregnancy to term or go out of state for an abortion. So hopefully she's got a way to go out of state. And yeah, and actually all pregnancies are potentially lethal to women. Anyway, and it goes into detail. Several other states have also now implemented abortion bans that include exemptions for medical emergencies. But these bans often have differing, nuanced language. Well, of course, because these legislators don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And they fail to take into account the complexity of pregnancy and the medical conditions that could affect it. Yeah, and to me, the doctors are more concerned about going to jail than doing the right thing. So, hopefully, in both cases, I hope that they get abortions out of state. Because this is an outrage. But this is something you're going to see a lot more of, unfortunately, in this post-Roe world. And that is it.